Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi Habibullah. I welcome everyone to a Saturday morning. For some people, they might join from Africa and Middle East. That would be early morning. But I would like to thank Mr. Suleiman because he's been a cornerstone for the Singapore event. And he introducing us to Mr. Michael, which is very, very active, professional in the halal space. So it's a proud moment to have you both on the panel. I'll do a
Thank
little
you.
talk on the Halal Angels Network. Akram, if you can play the presentation, or I can talk. That's not an issue.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Halal Angels story was conceived. Why? Because there's no angels network in the halal economy. Because there is everything. The whole ecosystem is ready, but the challenge of the halal ecosystem is the funding challenges. So while I was talking to Mr. Suleiman a year ago, and a few days ago I was talking to Mr. Michael, we discussed the same problem. The market is there, but hyper growth or growth funding is not there. And that's why we thought of launching the Halal Angels Network, because it connects the investors and it connects the startups. Because there are various venture capital companies, but they're country centric. So money from Singapore, if it has to be invested in Indonesia, it takes a couple of months to take the money. And startup industry is innovative, so the funding has to be right away. Otherwise, there's a problem. So we thought of doing this Halal Angels Network a couple of years ago. And the best thing happened is when I conceived the idea was to connect the investors. So initially, we wanted to do venture capital, but my mother forbade me from doing that. She says, you're taking somebody else's money, giving it to somebody. And even if you make $1 mistake on Yom Al Qiyamah, you'll be accountable. So we were also working on the Halal Angels Network, and we thought this is the best way. I was supposed to come to Malaysia and launch it, but then Corona happened, and the best thing happened was because of Corona, I launched it from the best platform. It was under the feet of my mother, because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, under the feet of the mother is the heaven, and her heart is connected to the throne of Allah Taala. My mom's, she has limited mobility. I was massaging her legs and doing her work. I talked to her, took her permission, and she says, "Oh, Bismillah." I launched it from under the. I took my mobile, launched it, and it became a viral phenomenon. So if you love your parents, Allah Taala blesses you. It's written in the Quran and it's written everywhere. So there's a blessing I saw in reality. The other thing is when I launched it, a lot of people started talking to us. And there was a gentleman called Mr. Gopi. He's an Indian origin from Silicon Valley. He approached me, one of the first guys. And he says, Doctor, this is an exciting idea because the Valley is looking for ethical finance. And crony capitalism is dead. Progressive economics is there. And you're talking about this. So even though, Gopi did that and he invited me to talk on this right away. The other thing which happened was somebody introduced me to a very smart gentleman called Mr. Salamowat. He was one of the first panel speakers. And he's from East Africa. He runs a venture capital fund. He's a very renowned guy. And I spoke with Salome and we just signed up within a week after talking with each other. The agenda was, to take Africa to the next level. And Africa is hyper growth market, especially now people watching if, later during the course. Money, if you invest in Africa, if you put $100 within a year, doubles. If you invest other places, it takes a little time. But the biggest thing which happened was we got an istikhara, a sign from Almighty Subhanallah. The first migration of Muslims didn't happen to Medina, it went to East Africa. So we got an endorsement that we're at the right path. And we did it and it worked out very well with Saloon. The other thing we wanted to do is women entrepreneurship. Okay. And the first angel investor is Bibi Khadija Razina, the wife of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She invested in Rasulullah's first, caravan expedition to Syria of goods and, services. And later she invested in Islam. So what better way? So we thought of launching the Khadija initiative, which was to empower women. And it is for everyone. It doesn't mean Muslims. Now, I want to clarify when we talk about halal or ethical, we take the principles of, halal. And halal doesn't mean to acquire a certificate to run a business. Halal means hukukul ibad. how you take care of every stakeholder, whether it's your government, whether it's your people, whether it's your team, whether it's your suppliers, consumers. You have to be honest. And when you do honesty, it's between you and your Allah. Okay. 2 years before Corona, I visited Southeast Asia, and whoever I met in Southeast Asia, after every conversation, whether it's a minister or any, they said sorry. I was flabbergasted. Why they saying sorry after every conversation? Later, I researched, and the impact was that we might not meet again. So if I've made a mistake, I should apologize during the course of time. So the South Asian people, whether it's Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, they were following hukuk al-ibad, which I learned from Southeast Asia. So halal means hukuk al-ibad. So you have to pay your taxes on time, you have to pay your team on time, you have to pay your supplies on time, be honest. Yeah, whether it's a food or a financial instrument we are talking, then halal certification is important. But thousands of years, we didn't run this thing with certification. It was all about hukuk al-ibad. And that's what we're trying to do with halal. And the journey started, more people we met, they said this is more ethical, sustainable development, how things are moving. So halal is not only halal, it is taking care of every stakeholder of your business. Akram, next slide, please. And when we said Khatija initiative, it's an cohort for 1,001 women. Why 1,001 women? Because Arabian Nights has 1,001 stories. So every woman has an entrepreneurship story. So whether it's, it can be from any background, caste, creed, and color, everyone's invited to this cohort. Akram, next slide, please. Now, why halal economy needs entrepreneurship? Because when you study the model, entrepreneurs mean spur growth. It creates a new vibrancy. It adds to national income. It creates a social change. It helps in community development. It solves issues through innovation, and it adds revenue to the government. And the best thing, it creates jobs for everyone. Next slide, please. Now, both these gentlemen will agree, and earlier panelists, the halal consumer market is bound to grow, inshallah, by 2025, according to Reuters, to 9.71 trillion. Major countries, Indonesia, India, Malaysia, Nigeria, Iran, Turkey, Pakistan will be dominating this space because of huge size of that market. Now, when we talk about halal, people assume it's modest fashion or it's food, but it is beyond food. It is beyond things. Anything with ethical becomes this thing, halal. And Asian tech companies are actually luring 1.8 billion Muslims across the globe. And the new millennials, whether it's the Muslim millennial kids or the other communities kids, they are driving the industry. And thanks to COVID, digitally it's expanding faster. So this is a short story about Halal Angels Network. I will introduce Mr. Akram Haq. Akram Haq is the founder and publisher of the Policy Times. It is one of the most unique news channels which talks about policy initiatives. He's also on the board of advisory for Halal Angels Network. And his news channels is only taking issues which help elevate citizens in a positive way. Over to Akram.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Malik. You have been doing an excellent work for the humanity, for the society, and for the world, especially taking, ethical startup webinar series, because not many people in the world, talks about this. What I'm really proud of that you associated us, Policy Times, me, myself. And through this, I got the blessings of Almighty to get connected with the leading personalities of the world, especially working in this space. Now, today I want to start from a different background. Then I want to welcome our speakers and start the program. There are two things. Good things, people don't like much. If I say beetroot is a very nice, healthy juice, which will improve your blood circulation in the body, you find 99.99% do not take beetroot juice, or they don't eat that. Anything which is healthy are always not that tasty for the people. So that way, being honest, being ethical is always costly to implement in the society. That is one. The second is the solution of the world, or all the problems in the world. The best way to bring solution is entrepreneurship. All the leading nations of the world who have really succeeded, we saw how through entrepreneurship has always been the root of bringing solutions, innovations in the world. Now, entrepreneurship has also become a very tricky part. Startup and entrepreneurship have become tricky part because a lot of multi-billionaires or big companies have been using entrepreneurship either to transport money or to retain monopoly. They buy startups, they first invest in startups, they promote it and build it, and then they buy it so that they can retain monopoly globally, whether it is Facebook, Google, or the big giants. They have been doing it. And in that sense, being ethical and halal has become all the more important, that how we develop a self-sustainable model, not only to sell good products, but also to build a very positive, healthy global startup ecosystem to promote entrepreneurship and innovation in a very unbiased and positive manner. So this has nothing to do with the Muslim community, but across the globe. I am so proud and happy to see that now when we talk about that, Singapore is the commercial capital of Asia and one of the most important global hubs of the world. And especially in the Southeast Asian zone, Singapore is the center. It is the center of the financial capital or the finance of the world. And we have two eminent speakers from that nation to talk about how halal and ethical startups are booming in Asia, East Asia, and from that part of the world, and how globally we can build this. We don't do for the sake of just business. We do it for the sake of the world, because when we are born in this world, there are thousands generations which came before us. There will be thousands generations which will come after us. What we will leave us behind is the good work, is the sustainable work that we leave behind. So let us join hands together to build an ecosystem which does not overexploit the resources, but also leave the best for the future generation. I would like to invite Mr. Sulaiman Haroon Saab, who is the founder of Halal Nexus, and Mr. Mikhail Melvin, who is the founder of Travel Media and Technology in this conference. I'll first request Mr. Sulaiman Haroon to kindly briefly introduce yourself and also give us a little account of what have you been observing on this space from Singapore across Asia.
Mr. Sulaiman, you can share your presentation.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Your screen sharing is not happening, Mr. Sulaiman.
So below there is a share screen option. You just need to click there first. Can you do it?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. May yahdihillahu fala mudhillalah wa man yudlil fala hadiyalah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. So all praise to Allah. We seek His guidance and His help and His forgiveness. And salam and salawat to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family, his companions, and those that follow them until the day of judgment. Alhamdulillah. I'd like to thank you, Dr.Tausif Malik, is the header, founder of the Halal Angel Network, for inviting me to this as a speaker to this webinar series, and to co-host Mr. Akram Haq, and also to our co-speaker, Mr. Mikhail Melvin Go. Just want to say that the couple of things that I will cover in the agenda of my presentation. First of all, a short intro, and followed by the halal market report. Something which I think on top of what Dr. Tausif has mentioned just now, particularly in the Singapore and the region here, and the opportunities and the startups, our own startup solution that we have discovered, and followed by a short conclusion. Before I go further, let me say that when Dr. Tausif Malik told me about the title of this webinar, I was and asked me to be a part of it. Personally, I was very pleased. This is because the halal and ethical startup, the topic of it, is in line with the concept of halal and tayyibah, as mentioned in the Quran. Now, allow me to read this ayat. Ya ayuhan nasu kullu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiban wa la tattabi'u khutuwati syaitan innahu lakum aduwwum mubin. O people, eat of what is on the earth, lawful and good, and do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. This is in Al-Baqarah chapter 2, verse 168. And there are a couple of other verses, three in fact, that mention about halal and tayyibah. And when we talk about halal and tayyibah, this concept is about being halal, which is permissible and lawful, and it goes with tayyiban, which means good and wholesome. In our case here, we're talking about ethical. And some scholars say it's not about the body, it's not about the body, but also about the heart and the mind. Because as a Muslim startup, I feel that being aware and being able to adopt halal and ethical practices are very important. And we know that Islam covers all aspects of our life, from starting a family to running the government, and even to the adab of going to the toilet. You know, Islam teaches us how to do it. So in our business, there are the halal and ethical way of doing it. And then this topic is very wide, and there are topics of muamalah, buying and selling, trading, etc., that the scholars of the past have written many books on this topic. So in fact, I think in future we can call the experts, the organizers can do that, to talk to the expert and call them. And these are the students of knowledge who can share their ilmu in this area about the muamalah of doing business in the halal and ethical way. Now let me touch about the global halal economy. And this is based on the report by the Global Islamic Report done by the Dinar Standard. I think all of us, may have come across this. This is among the latest report that came out, supported by the UAE government. In there are many sectors that was mentioned, and the halal global food sector was estimated at 1.17 trillion in 2019. And the compound annual growth of 3.5% is expected to hit 1.3 million in 2024. This is after taking into account the impact of the global COVID-19 pandemic. If you can't see the figures there in this slide, I just mentioned to you, the media and recreation sector, that's worth about 217 billion. The modest fashion, that's 311 billion. Cosmetic, 76 billion. Pharmaceutical, 105 billion. And the Muslim related travel business is 208 billion. So there's huge market over there. And we look at some of the very specific areas like pharmaceutical. These are new areas which I think a lot of us are not so aware, and startups can actually look into those areas to capitalize on the opportunities in those areas. Of course, there is a bigger portion here, the Islamic finance, which is expected to be 3.69 trillion. But there's some debate over there. We're not going to that, because the scholars are looking at various parts of the Islamic finance. But those numbers we'll be cautious about those numbers. But overall, you can see the figures are really huge. For Singapore, locally, according to MUIS, the local body here, the number of halal certified establishment in 2018 was 4,500, along with some 55,000 certified products in Singapore. Now that's double the number a decade ago, which is roughly about 5,500 now. And there's about 67,000 certified products in Singapore. Now, the report also talk about the various countries, and this will rank according to some criteria like the financial indicators, the government indicators, awareness indicators, and the social indicators. In the halal sector, actually Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia ranks among the top 5 countries. Now, Singapore also ranked very high in the pharmaceutical and cosmetic sectors, as well as in the media and recreation sectors. At Halal Nexus, we are actually a small halal consulting firm. What we, alhamdulillah, we were managed to deal with some big players in the pharmaceutical sectors, players who are actually global Fortune 500 companies who requires their product to be halal certified. Now, you may ask, what's driving this whole trend in this marketplace that we see in this part of the world? Essentially, it's driven by the customers. Now, you look at the halal market, it is actually from farm to fork. There are a couple of components, but in this slide, I just want to look at the last one, which is the consumer demand. Of course, there are the Sharia area, which is the halal and haram, and what's permissible and what's not. And then there are governing bodies and the players in the marketplace. And what's driving this is the consumer demand that we are seeing all over. Now, this is the driving force behind the growth of the market globally. The customers are looking at halal certified food establishment when they go out to eat and shop. And there's also a need for traceability. Now, halal, when it comes to halal certification, traceability is very important. So customers also want to ensure that whatever product that you get, they have to be traceable up to the source where the product is certified as halal. Now, there's also a need for the practices to be clean and the premises to be clean and healthy. And we're also looking at the ethical practices where involve maybe perhaps cruelty against animals and breeding and slaughtering. And today, halal, when we talk about halal, we're talking about sustainability practices in the marketplace. So what is, we know what is driving all this is from the consumer standpoint, but what are the problems and the opportunities out there for startups? For Halal Nexus, we have been talking to the players in the market, and we talked to them, and we realized that they are facing a lot of problems. For the F&B players out there, for example, we hear many challenges that they are facing when it comes to halal compliance. This includes difficulty to find suppliers, having to find the right platform to compare their halal products, the difficulty they have to track the halal expiration date, not able to fill the audit requirement, and to deal with large amount of data, and the inability for them to monitor the expiry of supplier product certificate. And they also can't find easily the consultant that can help them to go through the whole halal process. And the middle thing that we find when we talk to suppliers and manufacturers, for them, there are other things that they face too. There's too much paper-based manual transaction. They have difficulty to handle halal certification for many product lines. They have to handle surprise audit checks when they are not ready. There's a lack of control of ordering and non-halal ingredients, and there's a risk of cross-contamination of halal and non-halal products. And they have to entertain a lot of customer inquiries on halal certification. And there's also a non-standardized system in dealing with the F&Bs, their customers, and so on. And also there's a lack of a consultant in the market. Now, what you see here is the entire ecosystem, what we call as the halal digital ecosystem. Now, this comprises of all the players in the marketplace. When you talk about farm to fork, we're talking about from the agriculture field to the food storage and the food processor and the manufacturers and the third-party logistic distributors and importers. Now, these are big business over here. And there's a lot of opportunity for halal and ethical startups to look into. Of course, there are the normal retailers and the food outlets, caterers, restaurant operators that deal with halal certificates and halal certified products. And the end user is the customer who's driving all these things. And if you look at this, the whole system is traditionally being catered for by the halal certifying bodies, which is available in a lot of countries, either through the government or through private bodies. And there are, of course, food regulatory bodies in each country, and there are trade and other customs and restriction, what have you, regulation in those countries. And on the other end, you see the systems which trying to address some of these problems in the marketplace. There are in-house systems that allows for integration. There's also some supply food systems in the marketplace. What we have done is we look at all this and realize there could be a system which we could develop. And that's what we did. So Halal Deco was established. It's actually a position where we could devise a system, an integrated system for the halal digital ecosystem to automate the business flow and for halal compliance. It's available and affordable everywhere. Yeah, so Halal Deco is essentially a software as a service system that provides a comprehensive automated process for a typical business operation in the halal supply chain. The solution, among other things, provides the halal product management, supply management, order delivery and billing system in an interconnected environment, and encompasses an entire spectrum of the players in the industry, from manufacturers, distributors, importers, logistic providers, F&B establishment, as well as the halal food certification bodies. This is a kind of overview of the solution. Okay, I just touched a little bit on this, and just to let you know that there are couple of layers in the solution. The first layer is what we call the product and supply details layer, where the F&B players, distributors, and manufacturers can go in and look at the certificate, the product pictures, the halal expiry dates. That's in the common layer, what we call the marketplace, if you like. And then at another layer, which is a deeper level, is a transaction layer, where you can generate purchase order, delivery orders, and invoicing system. And on top of that, there is a halal compliance layer, which involves looking at applications for halal certification system, halal certification scheme, formation of a halal team, the ingredient list that make up the whole halal certification, the product and menu list. So all these are there in a very integrated kind of solution. The third parties are also available to kind of look into the system and see what they can extract from it. And the halal certifying bodies, we're also trying to engage them so that they can do halal e-auditing through the system. Yeah, so it is a pretty comprehensive system, and we are very fortunate that we have a team that are able to look into it and develop a system today. So we're at the stage where the system already developed. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. So it's just about the features that are required by the various stakeholders. And we are now at the stage where we want to find the right investor to grow with us into the future. Now, finally, I just want to conclude by saying that there is a huge business opportunity for startup in the halal economic sector with good growth despite the pandemic. There's a need to stress the importance of halal and ethical principle to conduct businesses and to tackle the challenges. There's a need for greater link-up, awareness, exposure between the startup and the halal industry and the investing community. I think Dr. Tausif has mentioned this. And I think this direction taken by Halal Angel Network with this web seminar is actually a good start, because there's a mismatch between those people who want to venture into the halal startup industry and with the investment community. For Halal Nexus, our consulting arm, and Halal Deco, which is the enterprise software startup. Alhamdulillah, we feel that we are positioned for this exciting growth, and inshallah, we will do all our best to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mr.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Akram, get Mr. Baikhail, because he has to go to the school of his daughter.
I see. So thank you so much, Mr. Suleiman, for the very comprehensive and wonderful review on this. I think this is by far one of the best presentations on halal and the kind of linkages that you have developed. May I now request to our second speaker, Mr. Mikhail, to kindly share your views on the subject.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Sorry, everyone. Family is important, right? So I have to go to my daughter's school. So, but still, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for the organizers, Dr. Tausif, Mr. Sulaiman, thank you everyone here for inviting me. I will now share my screen, but I think you need to stop the other screen sharing first.
Please go on.
Okay. Okay, let me just try. It's multiple windows. Okay. Okay, sorry, I have some issues with my screen share. No, Doctor, I sent you my slides, right? Could you please
Akram, can you share Mr. Michael's slide, please?
Okay, let me try.
That's the last presentation I sent you. Okay, while he's getting ready the slides, I'll just do while he's getting ready his slides, I'll just do a brief introduction. My name is Mikhail Melvin Goh. I'm a convert, and I started this company called Halal Travel. So Halal Travel is we reach around 9.4 million Muslims a month, right? We do that through various channels, right? Social media, web, and so on. Can I have the next slide, please? And I think for us, we are pretty big in this space, right? Which is the lifestyle and travel piece itself. And next slide, please. Okay, and I think the vision why I started this because it started with with a problem that I face, right? So I'm Muslim, but I'm also Chinese. I'm a son. I'm now a father and things like that, right? So the personas nowadays are getting more complex. It's not say that you're Muslims, you deny all the other identities, right? You have multiple personas. And I think there's a growing number of Muslims who are now more educated, have a lot more disposable incomes than previously, right? And although they are very good Muslims, they will also like to enjoy the world, right? And whatever bounties that Allah has created for all of us, right? So the mountains, the seas, food, music, and so on. There are a lot of things that they want to enjoy, but in a way that is not compromising on their faith. And I think that is the defining reason why I created Have Halal Travel, right? A very middle ground, publication where people can come and figure out what to do without feeling like they are less of a Muslim. And that I think is the most important thing for me because I felt that way when I came in, right? There were a lot of things I couldn't eat, I couldn't do, I was not sure, right? So I created this actually to solve my own problem. Okay, next, please. Okay, next. So that's what I mentioned, right? We are really addressing people with spirit of adventure. They want to travel to not just Indonesia or Malaysia or typical, GCC countries, right? They really want to go to Norway, to Scandinavia, to Amsterdam, to Japan, to Korea. Right? Next, please. Okay, so these are our stats. We reached 9.4 million. In terms of page view monthly users, we are clocking around 1.2 million unique users. We are on multiple platforms. We are can be considered a publisher or a portal, right? And next, please. And our reach extends to many different businesses we work with. It's not just travel. So travel makes the majority, like governments, airlines, and OTAs and so on. But we have a significant interest and also dealings, right, with people like MasterCard, Visa, Sony, your food startups like Zomato and so on, right? So those are all our clients. Okay, next, please. Yeah. So it's a bit about our readers. When they come, they're mostly medium to high income because we currently only publish in English. Most of them are slightly more well-to-do. They're well-educated and they travel 2 to 3 times a year before the pandemic. And that's the overwhelming profile that we have. And funnily is 80% women, right? So our publication is very popular with women. I guess because they make the decision in the house, what to buy and so on, right? So it's a natural thing for them. So next, please. Okay, so the other startup that I wanted to talk about is my startup, right? Which is Reimagine Halal in Asia, a conference that I created out of another need. I think is similar to what Dr.Tausif and Sulaiman has been mentioning, right? So networks. So networks are incredibly important in the Muslim market. But to me, the Muslim market can only grow as big as if non-Muslims were to participate. And there are a lot of non-Muslims who want to participate in this market, but sometimes they feel, oh no, it's overly I'm not Muslim, or there's a barrier, I'm not like them, and it makes it very difficult. But if you look at the trends in the market right now, we see people in Japan, in Korea, right, creating products, right? And I can give you some examples, like QP, one of the largest FMCG brands in Japan, right, has decided to open a plant in Malaysia and start making, halal soy sauce, halal salad dressings, and so on, right? And what happens is that opens a world opportunity for Muslims to experience the world. Finally, they can have halal, I don't know, sesame paste or something, or miso, that is very Japanese, right? And to me, that is the reason why I created this next startup, which is the Reimagine Halal in Asia. Next, please. So Reimagine Halal in Asia is one of my babies, also another babies, right? It's really a one-stop platform for all participants, right, regardless of faith, right, to come and engage with the Muslim market and to discover really the booming halal sectors, right? So they range from, Islamic finance to food, to travel, and so on. And it's really a global networking opportunity for all professionals. Next, please. Right, so we had our conference, last one was 2020. We delayed 2021 because of, just now everyone's citing their report, right? But Dina Standard is our partner, so they delayed the last year's one because of some issues. So actually it rolled forward to this year March, but we weren't in time, so we moved to 2022. I think somewhere in July we'll have our next conference. The last one we had 40 speakers and a lot of media features. Next one, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, and these are some of the brands that came, right? Forbes, Brahim's, one big FMCG brand in Malaysia. We had Tina Standard, our very close partners, Dubai Islamic Economy, and quite a few other governments coming. Next, please. Okay, these are our media coverage. Next, please. Yeah, next, these are just some stats. We don't have much time for this. Okay, these are the verticals that we cover. Oh, sorry. Islamic finance, food, travel, media technology, and sustainability. Next, please. And these are the people who came for our event, right? So they the CEO of Dina Standard, they released their report, SGI report at our conference. We had startups also like 99.co talking about what do you call it? Sharia compliant property or investments in terms of property. We had Islamic finance, heavyweights from the Indonesian side. We even had Lapan, Thomas from Lapan, right, talking about Muslims in space and so on, and United Nations coming to talk about ethical, refugees and how ethical financing can reach them better. Okay, next please. Okay, so these are more people, TikTok, and all the rest. Okay, so if you see, I think the spirit of of my vision, right, is very simple, right? If you look at these brands, you might not think there's a Muslim conference or halal conference because TikTok is here and Klook is here. They're very generic brands, but the truth is that all of them want to invest in this segment, either their time, their efforts, or really just understanding, right, the Muslim. And when we bring all these people together, we create a world where Muslims got options. Because if you rewind maybe 10, 20 years ago, there wasn't much options for Muslims, right? You either stay in your own community and do your own things, and that limits the potential, right, for Muslims to understand the world. And I think that's a source of conflict around the world and the source of a lot of animosity. And the vision for my company, be it Halal Travel or HIA, right, is really to bring down those barriers by bringing everyone to a common platform where it doesn't really matter what religion you are in or what affiliation or whatever it is, right? It's just looking at us as humans, right? And try to live harmoniously together. So I guess that is a brief introduction of my startup. I spoke to Dr. Tausif on the phone, right? I didn't want this to be about me, right? And or what startup I am in. I'm really more interested in Q&A, right? And back to the original topic that you guys opened with, which is the prospects of Singapore and also in the larger extension, right? Southeast Asia. These are my views, and I think we can have a discussion, right? So there's around 12 minutes left, but we still can have a discussion. So I believe in this region itself, Singapore is not, it's a hub, and there are a lot of things that are going on, right? We have natural advantages because of our ports, our clean government systems, and so on. The truth is that we have a lot of financing coming into Singapore, GCC wealth, to our private banking and so on. But the Islamic or rather Muslim segments are not very big in Singapore, because one thing is we only 15% of Singapore, 15.6% last census in 2020, right? Based on population are Muslims, only 15.6%. And you will struggle to find, Islamic finance like facilities in Singapore. Like they're not very common and not very talked about, right? So other than CIMB and Maybank that dominate the market, there's not much options, right? And I think the biggest thing about Singapore when we talk about Islamic markets, right, will be food. Like Brother Sulaiman's business, right? That's why it's a lot about halal certification, expanding our licensing, exporting food. Food as a topic itself is huge, right, in Singapore, because a lot of things come through here. We recognize in terms of standards and so on. But for the rest, I think if you look at the SGIE verticals, right, food is a huge one for us. I think travel is starting to pick up. We work with Singapore Tourism Board, so we can see them, really promoting Muslim interest, right? So that's travel. Islamic finance, not so much. I think there were some talks about starting some fund here, but then because Monetary Authority of Singapore regulates it quite well, so it's actually very hard to start that, right? And there's not much cosmetics also and pharmaceutical and so on, right? So we see a lot of interest in halal food industry and tourism, but not so much of the rest. But if you extend towards like Malaysia and Singapore, which is a region that is always focused, right? Then it becomes a lot more diverse. But then again, it's still playing within the same market, right? You see a lot of investments happening in the region. Like for example, Gobi Ventures, right? It's one of the biggest VC in this region that focuses on Muslim startups. And they particularly work on a concept called Taqwa Tech, right? So Taqwa Tech is about Muslim startups. So they made several big hand investments. Like for example, Trip Fairs in the region. I think they raised 3 million. Then also you got some other VCs who are starting to dabble a bit. Like Jungle Ventures invested in Evermore's e-commerce startup in Indonesia, right? But a lot of the investments happen in e-commerce space in the region, e-commerce space, especially for Islamic financing startups. Okay, so those two things are very popular, but you don't see it's disproportionately skewed towards that, right? So that's what I feel about the market right now. There's a lot of opportunity, but I think it's very asymmetric when it comes to where the funds are being allocated. So I'm done with my part.
Akram, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So, I have a question for both Mikhail and Mr. Suleiman. Based on a lot of work we have been doing in the halal space for years before venturing out into the Halal Angels Network. And because Singapore is in the very strategic location between Indonesia, Malaysia, and it is actually, let's say, cultural capital or iconic capital or iconic country in the region. What happens in Malaysia, Indonesia, the template follows across Southeast Asia. When the economic Asian tiger thing happened, Singapore and Taiwan were front end. But again, now Singapore has taken over, and people start talking about it. Now, we were doing a little research, and we found out, yes, food is a huge business. Other things are there. But because strategic location and financing, and you close to all these borders, how do you see, as Mikhail said and Suleiman said, there is a huge opportunity, we think, and that's why we want to do the Halal Ethical Investment Summit. Collaborate with everyone here, how we can take, because funding is a challenge. Okay, so whether it's e-commerce, it doesn't matter. What matters is the funding challenges is hampering the goal. Do you think it's the same problem you guys see in Singapore?
Sulaiman, you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, Sulaiman.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I find that there is this great mismatch between those who want to venture into the halal space and the funds that's available for the startup. I'm not talking about just Singapore. Yeah, so looking at Malaysia, Indonesia, and this region, there seems to be a lot of opportunities. I mentioned this in my talk just now. For example, in the logistic area, there is. I mean, we ourselves, we are on the ground. We feel that the big players are there to capitalize on the logistic. For example, they want to have warehouses to be halal certified. They will want to have their containers, containers to be halal certified. You just imagine containers they are meant only for halal products. So these are huge movement in the market, and I think a lot of startups are feeling that they can go into this logistics area, pharmaceutical area, which I think startup can look into a solution in those sectors. But to go into those sectors requires some huge investment. So perhaps the VCs, the investment community are not geared towards that kind of understanding of what the halal market is going through. I think there is a mismatch there. That's what I can see.
Okay.
For me, I think we had this chat, Dr. Tausif, right before our call, right? I think it's hard to hear this, but I think it's very important to stress, right, that investors don't open their pockets if there is no opportunity. An opportunity is subset of market size, of the abilities of the team, the product itself, that with the fit of the market, whether this team can achieve that kind of targets in the long run, right? So it's a function of that. So if we break that down, the first thing that whether Muslim or not Muslim, but the fundamentals of trade, right, or demand and supply, is that there is a demand because there is a need, there's something, right? Then there's a supply, right, which is the startups or whatever trying to answer that need. The fundamentals of investment don't change because we are Muslims or halal or so whatever it is, right? So that fundamental is the cornerstone of investment. I think when that is violated, right, it becomes very skewed, right? So I see my biggest advice, right, to anyone listening to this is this, right? Don't forget, I know there's a thing about Islamic startups and things like that. We are different. But the fact is that we have to understand we do not defy the logic of investment. The fundamentals still stays, right? We must be good businesses in order to be invested in, which is the fundamentals of Islamic finance, right? So rather than look at it from a green point of view, right? We put our green halal lens. Oh, okay, you're Muslim, you're not. I would prefer if we look at it from a business point of view first. Is this business investable? That's the first question I ask. Then the halal aspects come on top of it, right? Then it becomes unique because other than a point of contention and, oh yeah, they don't want to invest in me, it is actually a point of strength. Because you are Muslim, you're addressing a 1.34 billion market, right? You are unique, provided you have a good business fundamental. That's what I firmly believe in, right? Because if this were true, then Muslim startups should not be thriving. But we see in Malaysia, in Singapore also, right? Logistics, in various segments, there are very, very successful Muslims running businesses that have been invested in. And we see funds, being created because of this awareness, right? Be it ethical financing or whatever it is, there are funds that are starting to spin up, right, to invest in this. But perhaps it is time, right, for startups to maybe not consider themselves, unfortunate because they are Islamic or whatever, but really grow up to understand, hey, we need to be investable, right? We need to build solid businesses that they can scale, right? And I think that is the fundamental story and narrative, right? I feel the region startups should tell themselves, because with that, right, is strength. And strength, right, people recognize it and they will be more investable, right? And that's what I feel. Very strong opinion, but over 5 years, I've seen, and I feel we should change our narrative.
Right. Akram,
Yeah.
you can open the mic to audience if you want to.
Yeah, I would request our audience kindly keep sharing your questions or points or suggestions in the chat box. We can also, if you have a question, you can raise your hand. We can take your question. Sorry. Please raise your hand so that we can take your questions, or we can give you the mic. So one question I want to ask to our panelists is, suppose we imagine that the halal ecosystem has emerged up to its full potential. How is it going to coexist or survive with the existing traditional market? How is it going to disrupt or complement or coexist with the existing market? Yeah, anyone can go.
So I'll just go ahead first, right? Sorry, because I'm short of time. This is a conversation I had with Bank Indonesia, right? And as you know, they have done one of the largest merger between 3 national banks, right? BNI, I think Mandiri, and another one I can't remember. And they have become the 5th largest bank, Islamic bank in the world. Right. So back to what Dr. Tausif said previously, right? I don't believe Singapore is the leader in terms of it's a leader in a lot of things, right? But definitely not Muslim market, because we have our neighbors, right, getting their act together and creating one of the largest, entities with assets under management, right, which is so huge, right? And I believe that, to your question, right, why I'm talking about fintech right now, or rather Islamic finance, it all starts with funding. So Dr. Tausif, you are right? It all starts with funding. if Islamic startups or Muslims have no access to funds, microloans, or even traditionally angel funds down to seed capital to Series A to mezzanine to IPO, then it is very hard ecosystem to actually grow, right? So with the growth of these banks, right, I'm actually quite hopeful, right? Because I've seen people get financing now, not just from VCs, right, but they actually get from angels, from banks and so on, which is great, right? Because access of funds help propel growth. So that is the first fundamental. So once the banking system change, people are more savvy, right? Then the ground is told, really the earth is more fertile for anything to grow, right? Then after that is really people. Is the society ready for Muslim startups, right? In some societies, they are very myopic, right? They say, oh, you're Muslim, I'm not, and I don't like you, I won't support you, which is a problem, right? So people need to change, right? Once people change, then they're more accepting, then maybe it's possible for a non-Muslim to use a Muslim startup, which means the total market opportunity for Muslim startups increases, right? So you don't have to just serve Muslims. You can serve non-Muslims, which is actually part of our da'wah also. You think about it, right? Then after that, your market opportunity increases. Then you can really run a business, because for non-Muslims, right, they actually can reach the Muslim customer and everything. But for Muslims, sometimes we have this stigma, we are worried and things like that. We don't have that market. So our total market opportunity decreases, right? So that fundamentals have to be in first, right? So now we are making small steps with that. But there is no difference, right? It's still running a business, of course, ethical, right? And based on what we believe, the book, right, and what our teachings, right? So that is what I believe, right? So now it may be a bit challenging, but I think with good work from Dr. Tausif and all of you here, right, there's a lot more awareness, and I think we're making small steps towards getting startups and businesses off the ground and really truly allowing them to stretch, really stretch in this savannah, right, of opportunity.
Okay, Mr. Suleiman.
Well, I think I go back to Dr. Tausif, what you mentioned, why Halal Angel Network come about. There seems to be in the traditional way of funding, in the global sense, with the VCs and the capitalist banking system and all that. A lot of it doesn't jive well, with the Islamic fundamentals. So, as mentioned, if there are ways where we can garner the investment, the Muslim investment community through some networks which you guys are doing. There are objectives which I think Muslim investors have in principle, which are different than the non-Muslim investors. I think that's going to be the core of the approach. So the halal and ethical way, the halal ethical investment are key to the approach. So when investors looking for a different kind of playbook than the traditional VCs and the traditional investors, I think they would find a different yardstick altogether. I think uplifting the poverty, for example, spreading the properties, the zakat and all that, the wakaf, all these are values which we Muslim hold very dearly to ourselves. But those traditional way of thinking of investment, of fixed return and so on, those are not applicable to us. So I think while we think that there is a mismatch, but if you look at it from a traditional point of view, there is. But I'm for one is very positive to look at the future in terms of new ways for the Islamic investing community to look at the opportunities in the halal and ethical startup and to move forward and do it in the most ethical way and grow the business and seize the opportunity for the startup.
If I would add, right, one last point, right, I think what Brother Sulaiman said is correct. I actually had this good fortune to meet this Caucasian called and a very smart doctor called John Sandwick. He lives in Geneva, right? So he's a finance professional, but he's not Muslim, but he specializes in Islamic finance. Right. So his PhD was written on Islamic finance and how Islamic finance is superior as compared to conventional finance. So his PhD topic was, performance of funds, right? Comparing the top 100 funds with, top 100, I think, rated funds for Islamic Sharia compliant funds, right? And his PhD was interesting because number one, he's not a Muslim, right? But he so believes in Islamic finance. And his finding was very simple, right? That at the end of the day, if you look at a 10-year period of performance of funds, which is very usual market practice, right? And you remove all the peaks and troughs and spikes, right, along time, the Islamic funds actually perform better than conventional finance.
I can add a point here. Everyone uses Apple products.
Yeah.
And Apple is a zero debt company.
Yes, zero debt.
And when you see zero debt, it's near to the Islamic principles of no interest,
Correct,
giving to anyone. And when you look at from that point of view, the market capitalization is $3 trillion. Correct. So we don't need to look at enough data, just look at Apple.
Yes.
And there's zero debt, right? So somebody asked me, now, very good point Akram raised about how ecosystems. I say what the first people who moved into the halal economy, they wanted to do a small market talk. We will do it for the, this thing. But when you look at from an Islamic perspective and hukuk al-ibad, taking care of everyone, all businesses, if they follow the hukuk al-ibad, you don't need a halal certificate, you do your business, right? And a lot of people ask me, funding and stuff. I said, don't take anybody's funding, even though I'm in that platform. I said, look at the life of Hazrat Abdul Rahman bin Auf. When he went to Medina, he had no money. And when, according to agreement, they were splitting up with the Ansar, and when people migrated, they were splitting the, resources with the local people. But he said, show me kunya, show me the marketplace, right? Rather than going very secluded in a very small way, he went to the market, right? Unfortunately, this is a problem in the halal market. It's very getting secluded. Too much of data, too much of talk, but not exploding. So if somebody asks me, do you need a halal certificate to run a business? I said, where it's written in Sharia to have a halal certificate. Get me a quotation. Yes, because modern chemicals need to be evaluated. And as Brother Suleiman said, anything written halal, tayyiban is halal. So if whether I have a small store or a big corporation, I don't need to label it in the halal economy. I just need to put it as, hukuk al-ibad. The minute I do hukuk al-ibad, I will pay my taxes on time. I will be environmentally friendly. I will take care of people. So there's no competition as such. But very interesting, one of our partners is working with one of the Asian countries, which has a very limited Muslim population. And that country is targeting 1 billion Muslims to sell the goods and services. One Asian, I can't reveal the name. And our partner is working with that on that project. So that means you can look at two ways. I believe there's one question, Akram, from another,
Yeah. So there's a question from our audience is, is there any work on halal going on in the West? And what is the potential of halal startups in the West?
I need to answer because I'm an American, so I have full right to talk on this.
Dr. Tausif and everyone, thank you so much for inviting me. I have to go. If not, the principal will be very angry. So sorry. I've got limited time. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah. The thing is, there's a lot of work happening. And if you look at Melvin's slide, there's a company called Dinar Standard doing a lot of work from America, writing reports. Rafiuddin Shiko, I know him for like 10 years now. And he's a very legend. In fact, I came to know that one of my cousins, they're married in, his cousin is married with one of my cousins in Canada. So he's doing fantastic work. There's a lot of people doing fantastic work. Now compare West with other countries. America, actually, I will only talk about America because I'm American. America actually follows, if you look at the Constitution of America, Thomas Jefferson wrote the constitution based on the Quran. It's a historical fact. Now they pay salaries on time, weekly paychecks. Now Islam talks about paying the wages right away. So America is the only country trying to pay nearly to that. When you look at the interest rates in America, it's nearly 2%, near zero. America promotes entrepreneurship because, if you start something in America, when you try to call somebody, they'll meet you. They'll directly deny you on the face or accept you in the face. That's the way Muslims are supposed to be doing it. So the American culture is talking about hukuk al-ibad, and it's a huge market, even though 3%, between 2 to 3% Muslim population, but it's a lot of activity happening from America. And as I said, Gopi told me that Silicon Valley is trying to go to an ethical way. And a lot of Muslim countries, government funds are going to Silicon Valley to do that. Even Toronto government, one of the gentlemen spoke to me from Canada. He said, the sovereign fund of Oman and sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia recently invested in Ontario state, which has Toronto as a capital, for sheep farming for Hajj and Umrah. So there's a lot of work happening. When you look at, there's something concept of neobank, which I came to know a couple of months ago through a company. They are putting a concept on a banking system. So they use the business license to do neobanking. And when you look at one of my friend, he's created a hemp oil treatment, halal hemp oil treatment for a lot of ailments. So he's going to launch it. So there's a lot of work happening in the Western countries. Now, when you look at UK, we have proposed to the UK government to make UK the gateway to halal investment. Because UK has all the family offices of rich people, sovereign funds, all the venture capital. After Brexit, this is a great opportunity, and they love the ideas. You can Google search that Halal Angels talking about this. So there's a lot of work happening on that space. Anything specific to Singapore, because we have Brother Suleiman, or if there's no question, then Akram can ask some questions, and then we can take a final comment from Brother Suleiman and conclude.
Right. Yeah, I don't think any question from the audience is there. So, Mr. Suleiman, really nice to hear about you started with the verses of Quran, which was really nice in terms of giving the right direction to it. Now, Singapore is the commercial hub. Now, Dubai has also emerged as the next hub in Asia, within Asia. Now, Singapore and Dubai, these are best places for business. With regards to halal business, halal startups, how do you see Singapore or Southeast Asian countries are promoting? And what collaboration can Southeast Asia or Singapore, Malaysia, and these countries can do with South Asia and other part of the world? How? Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs coming up from the South Asia's, nations, whether this is Bangladesh, Pakistan, many other nations. So how we can collaborate, and what kind of programs or conference we can do to promote these things further in future? Because Singapore, Malaysia, these are very trusted, credible platforms for business.
Surely. I think you look at Singapore itself, it's a very good environment to start up companies. I mean, the government is very pro-business. It's easy for startup to venture, and the administrative bureaucracies in starting business is almost non-existent here. So for startup to make it as a launch platform, it's a very good place. The thing is, Singapore is a small country, so we need to have the support from the hinterland, especially Malaysia and Indonesia. So in a sense, geographically, you look at it, the market here is small in Singapore, but when we expand into the region, the Muslims, halal Muslim startup will find that it is a good platform, a good location for them to start off their venture, into this region, because of the marketplace and because of the readiness of the people. And if, for example, in Malaysia itself, I think they are driving the halal market with the HDC, Halal Development Corporation. They are making a lot of progress, be it in terms of reaching out to the market, in terms of solution into the market. I think they are making a lot of headway in that area. And Indonesia is biggest, I mean, in terms of the population itself. So if you look at the region itself, I think the promise is huge. But of course there are setbacks, and I think if there are opportunities for Halal Angel Network, you guys to come over here, physically and understand the market here even better, networking with the people over here when the opportunity comes post-pandemic, I think it'll be a great avenue to start the ball rolling for this part of the world.
Akram, there's one more question.
Yeah, so you want to take it, Dr. Malik?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. So the question is, Singapore is the financial center of the world. We all know that. Now, a lot of, so if you talk about Muslim startups or entrepreneurs, not only Muslim startup, halal startups, we can say. So any non-Muslim can also start a ethical or halal startup. How can we channelize a huge, because South Asia has huge talent. How do we promote or how can we facilitate Singapore to become, it is already the investment capital for a lot of startups within Southeast Asia as well as South Asia. So is there any practical roadmap that we can work out? Because funding, as Dr. Malik initially started, funding and financing is the base and source of startup. And I remember the Chinese billionaire Jack Ma said, once billionaire, he said that the startups or innovation is all about taking risk. And those nations or those financial systems which can take risk to invest in startups and innovation, they are the ones who are the long-term winners. So can we promote this? If we can, then we can immediately flash and boost the halal startup and ecosystem. Yeah. Mr. Sulaiman and Dr. Malik, for both of you.
I would like to say something very interesting. India is in a beautiful strategic location and with so many natural resources. We had this idea how we can export a lot of goods and services. India is already a superpower in technology services. But when you look at foods, when you look at medicine, and if India can look at these certifications, it can also export a lot to Southeast Asia. And the South Asian investments from Singapore, they can come into this and invest to manufacture. So I see, as a Indian American, I see a huge potential because of our historical connection. When you say Singapore, we also have Sholapur, right? So that words come from the same thing. When I was there, there was Devi, there's Mr. Krishna. Means even though there was Muslims, but their names were from India. And so I'm very proud of this cultural, India to Southeast Asia, where that can culturally we can leverage to make this market. And as I said, it's nothing to do with Muslim startups. It's all about ethical investments I'm talking about. I'm very proponent of halal and ethical because it takes off sustainability. So, Mr. Suleiman, if you can add some points on that.
Yeah, I think from a country-to-country relationship between Singapore and India, I think I don't have the numbers, but the trade has been going up by leaps and bounds, between the two countries. And I think in India, Singapore companies has invested a huge amount of money in India itself. And there's been some trade talks to encourage more investment between the two countries. So there is already a conduit, if you like, between the two countries. And if there is cross investment, there are opportunities. I think it's quite easy for a startup to venture across these two countries. So if there is companies out of Singapore who wants to say have their perhaps development outlets or R&D, back in India. I think they can also do that, having the HQ headquarter in Singapore. But Singapore, the manpower and wages are extremely high. So the idea is always to get India to be the hinterland, of Singapore companies. And startup always need manpower. They need skills, and I think that's where there is this natural link between. Historically, also it has been the way. So we just have to make this happen even more, and I think the platform should be there for us to get connected even stronger.
You rightly said a lot of unicorns from Indonesia, they have a back office in Bangalore, like Gojek. Gojek has a back office coding in in India. And when you look at India's largest e-commerce retailer, Flipkart, they are registered in Singapore. So a lot of startups to raise capital go to Singapore to register because the VC, it's a VC hub. So there's always a connect. I met some people during the course of time, and they see this market as a huge between two countries.
Amazing. So excellent. Any question? Or I think, yeah.
We can do a conclusion.
Yeah, let us move to conclusion. So thank you so much, Mr. Suleiman, for very outstanding and elaborative, comprehensive discussion. And I think a lot of synergies there. Singapore is the most credible and serious market for business across the world. So if we can promote a concept like this through Singapore, I think this will give a very positive message globally. So let us take the final comments. So Suleiman, your closing remarks or any particular message that you want to give for our viewers.
So yeah, on behalf of the startups in Singapore, what I would like to say is there is a huge opportunity for the halal and ethical startups, be it in other countries, but particularly in Singapore, there are opportunities that they can tackle and they can look into. The government here is very conducive for startup investment, so they look into venturing here and see what they can find out in terms of the manpower, the skill set, and all. Halal and ethical investment is wholesome. I think if you do it the right way, the halal and ethical way, I think there are avenues that inshallah Allah will open up to us to seize the opportunity, in this space which is ever growing.
Excellent. Dr. Malik.
I think my final conclusion is ethical market equals to halal market. Halal markets is equal ethical. And when you look at all the religious texts from Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, they all talk about sustainability, taking care of everyone. And it's a positive message where we can take care of everyone, like brothers. Whatever faith, caste, creed, color we come as brothers and sisters and help each other. Because, the next generation will be dependent on sustainable because environment, business is good. But if businesses, capture the environment issues and, don't do anything, sustainable development will not happen. And when businesses don't empower people, like what happened in America, crony capitalism, that way the poor becomes poor, the rich becomes rich. So if we work together, there'll be holistic development in every country, every community. And end of the day, if we can get 2 pieces of meal on everyone's table, my table, your table, and we eat peacefully and, in a nice way, that would be a sustainable development, according to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Malik and Mr. Suleiman for the wonderful remarks. I think with this, we come to the end of our today's session. So kindly visit our website, halalangels.net, and we are also in the social media for further updates about our future programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.